I'm just praying that today the Lord will fill this place with His glory and do a work in our lives. Let's turn to John chapter 21. John chapter 21. After these things, Jesus showed Himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and in this way He showed Himself. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of His disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, "I am going fishing." They said to him, "We are going with you also." They went out and immediately got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. But when the morning had now come, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Then Jesus said to them, "Children, have you any food?" They answered Him, "No." After a night of serious labor and toil, Peter had caught nothing. Peter had failed. Peter has failed in many things. Peter has failed many times. The first time that Peter saw Jesus, he was just coming from a failed fishing trip. He had labored all night and caught nothing. He had invested in a boat and hoping to recover some of his investment, he had gone out to sea to catch some fish and caught absolutely nothing in a sea full of fish. Peter had failed in his faith too. In Luke chapter 9, we see that Jesus had called the 12 disciples and He had empowered them to go out and heal and to cast out demons. But along the way, they met a boy, a father and a son, who had epileptic attacks, because of a demon. And Peter could not cast that demon out. None of the other disciples could. But Peter definitely could not cast the demon out. Peter had failed. Mostly when he opened his mouth, Peter failed to say the right things. Right? After a while, he also realized. But not always. Once in a while, he would tell John, "You ask." Because every time he opened his mouth, his master would give him a rap on the knuckles, because he would open his mouth and say something profoundly foolish. Peter failed every time he opened his mouth. Peter failed even when it came to the simple act of praying. Jesus called Peter and a couple of others and said, "Let's go aside and pray." Peter fell asleep. He could not even pray for 1 hour. So when it came to not moving mountains and anything, simple thing like just praying alongside Jesus and other people, Peter fell asleep. He failed in his prayer life also. He promised Jesus that through thick and thin I will be with you. He failed that too. He saw the resurrected Jesus twice. Okay? He saw the resurrected Jesus twice. And yet, he decides to forget the sights of Jesus, forget his call, failing in his ministry. He says, "Enough," and he goes fishing. All that would have been forgotten if on that calm night, there was no storm that night. It was a beautiful night. The moon was out. The sea was calm. A perfect night for fishing. Peter, failure has become such a habit with him. Peter fails once more. At this point, if you have to be very diplomatic, you would call Peter a loser and a failure. Those are the most diplomatic things that you can call Peter. He failed in fishing right, he failed in standing right, he failed in praying right, he failed in ministering right. There was nothing that he failed in speaking right. There was nothing that Peter could do right. Anybody feels like Peter sometimes? Yeah. The topic that the Lord impressed upon my heart to speak today is failure and success. Normally we would put that as success and failure. But I don't like the sound of that because it begins with a positive and ends with a negative. I would rather have success in the middle and success at the end. But that life doesn't offer that always. So if I have a choice, I would rather have my failure in the beginning and end with a success. So that's why I've titled this message, Failure and Success. All of us have one life to live. In this form, on this earth. And all of us have a few decades behind us now. At this point, if I were to ask you, is your life a failure or a success? You don't have to tell me the answer, but I'd just like you to think about it. Is your life, after the few decades behind us, is your life a failure or is your life a success? I want to say one thing, if God was through with us, by now we would have been home. He would have said, let's go home. But God is not through with us, and that's why He's sending this message to us. Because He wants us to be successful. He wants us to lead significant lives. Okay? Lives of significance. So I just want to, just walk along with Peter and see something where we can relate. Mostly in his failures, and then, we look at his success too. In some ways, when you hear people talk about Peter, he's seen something like a bumbling fool. A person who will go and say the wrong thing at the absolute wrong moment. You would think Peter is the guy whose father will say, "Adani mindadirike." Or you can see Peter's mother saying, "Monani avada pomulani vendathu onnum parayala." You just don't open your mouth. Right? You can see that. Because Peter didn't become like that when he was, in his 20s or 30s. He must have been like that all through his life. But Peter remained Peter. With Peter, what you saw was what you got. There was nothing inside. If it was inside him, it came out immediately. You always knew where you stood with Peter. When you walk down Kerala, many parts, just, in the villages and all that, and if two people know each other, they're passing by, one person will ask the other, Evdota, And the other guy will, I've seen a couple of replies. One reply would be, just a shrug of the shoulder. Other would be chuma, or chande, whatever, he's going somewhere. Peter could have said any of those things. Peter could have shrugged his shoulder. Peter could have said chumma, Peter could have said anything that day night. But Peter had to say, I am going fishing. I wish he had said I had gone sailing. No problem. No expectations. No results to show. It's a nice evening, I'm going sailing. But Peter said, I'm going fishing. It's like Tendulkar announcing at a press conference, tomorrow I'm going to score 200. And he goes out to bat next morning and gets out on the Firstborn. There was no problem if he had not announced it. He would have been forgiven. But you call for a press conference and you say, I'm going to score 200 tomorrow, and then you get out on a duck, you're setting yourself up to be a laughing stock. If we had not taken our baptisms, or if we had not made a proclamation before Brother Joe's uncle, or Pastor Rajesh, anybody, it would have been okay. But we've done all those things. We did a little press conference act, and then we've failed. Maybe they don't know it and you don't know it, but I know it. And the person sitting next to you has failed too. You understand? So what should we do? Should we shy away from making a commitment at any point in time? Saying, I want to stand for Jesus? Saying, whatever happens, whether I live for Jesus, whether I die for Jesus, whether I live or die, I belong to Jesus. Should we shy away from saying those kind of things? Because we have failed? I want to say one thing. One thing is sure. By not committing to that, we are definitely committing to failure. By not committing to stand for Jesus, we are definitely committing to failure. So the thing to do is saying, Lord, by your grace, I will live for you. And by your grace, should the need rise, I am ready to die for you. Whether I live or die, by your grace, I belong to you. It's by your grace. Many years back, at the time when I gave my life to the Lord, the preacher had challenged us, and it was a decision moment for me. And he had explained it was not a rosy call. He had explained the cost. What is the cost of committing your life to the Lord? And when I sat there and I said, knowing me as well as I do, there's no way I can pay that price, at least on a consistent basis. I've never done anything like that before. And then I was sitting and worrying, I saw people standing up, there were a few people standing up, and I said, wow, they know. They're so sure about themselves. And I said, Lord, I can't commit to paying that, but I'm not sure whether I can keep that my part of the deal. And suddenly a thought came to my mind. Today I recognize it as the Holy Spirit. And I said, Lord, if you give me the grace, by your grace I will stand for you. And I stood up. And even when I stood up, I thought I'm doing a little bit of cheating because, it's not 100% my own, But I think in retrospect, that's the best kind of commitment that you can make, where you're not leaning on your own strength, not saying that if everybody else will leave you, it's not the first Peter kind of commitment. It's saying, by your grace, we're depending wholly on your grace. So I would say, go out. Sometimes when we sing the song, I surrender all. We have two choices, either to sing that song or not to sing that song. But if you say, by your grace, I'm ready to surrender all. If we don't make that commitment, if we sit on the sidelines, both sides may or may not claim us as their own. Because nobody knows now who you belong to. To whom have you surrendered? Have you surrendered to Jesus? Have you surrendered to Satan? Nobody knows. So either both of them will claim you, or both of them will say, no, you have not claimed, you have not said anything about me. So this fence sitting is a dangerous thing. And saying, I will be all yours on my own, I'm sure is also dangerous, because we have seen from Peter's life, you can fall flat. Let's think for a moment who it is who failed, because I want to drive home this. Sometimes we get so obsessed with our not obsessed, we get very perturbed with where our life is going. I want to, I believe the Lord wants to shake us out of that, and and change the course this evening. Let's see who fell that night and the days before that. When Jesus decided to choose a house to visit, if you see Luke chapter 4, from the synagogue, the first house that he ever went to was to Peter's house. He went to Simon's house. What about us? There are a lot of houses in Ernakulam that the Lord could have gone to. But he came to your house and my house. Okay? In Luke chapter 5, the first time they have that interaction, and Peter gets the call, there are two boats. One of them belongs to Peter. Guess which one the Lord chose? Peter's. There are about 1.3 billion people in India today and about 7 billion people in the world. But he chose you and me to be his vessel. Okay, he said, I want that vessel. I want that boat. Jesus challenged Peter saying, launch out into the deep. How many times have we heard a call like that? Do something little scary. Go and talk to that person. Share the gospel with him or her. Launch out into the deep. Same to same, like we would say. Peter and we. To whom was the revelation that Jesus was the Son of God first given? Peter. Everybody kept quiet. Peter said, you are the Son of the living God. Was it given to us? The same revelation? Which of the 12 disciples got a new name? Peter. You are Cephas, a stone. What about us? He gave us the same name. If you read Isaiah 51:1, he says, look to the rock from which you were cut, and the quarry from where you were hewn. If you and I are cut from a rock, what does that make us? Hallelujah. What does that make us? A Cephas, a stone. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, or hewn or cut, the quarry from which you are hewn. In 1 John 3:1, it says, behold what manner of love the Father has given to us, that we should be called the sons of God. New name. Isaiah 43:7. Everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. Isaiah 62:2. The nations shall see your righteousness, and all the kings your glory, and you shall be called by a new name. Isaiah 65:15. You shall leave your name to my chosen for a curse, and the Lord will put you to death, but his servants he will call by another name. Everything that Jesus did for Peter, Jesus has done for you and me. What about Satan? Of the 12 disciples, Jesus looked to Simon and said, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked for you, to sift you like wheat. Special treatment either way. Peter himself writes in his first epistle to you and me, your adversary, the devil, is as a roaring lion, walking about, seeking whom he may devour. If you and I If believers face some strong times of oppression, you wonder why things are coming against you. It's A, because the Lord has allowed it. But 2, because you have something that will rock the kingdom of darkness. An assignment that will rock the kingdom of darkness. It may be you're going to impact one person or 5,000. It doesn't matter. But that one person or those 5,000 people are going to shake the kingdom of darkness. Satan has asked that you be sifted like wheat. Every time, we get into times of trial, whether it's mentally or any other way, remember, there is unfinished work at hand. There is unfinished kingdom work at hand, and the devil wants to prevent you from going there. So we need to stand our ground. And for whom did Jesus say? Pray specifically. Peter, I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. He prayed for Peter specifically. We can see Jesus praying for Peter. We can see Jesus. It's easy to visualize that. Jesus, disciples, Jesus praying for Peter. I have prayed for you. We believe that. But sometimes he seems very far away. And we can't see him praying for us. But that's contrary to the word, because the word says in Hebrews 7:25, he lives forever to make intercession for us. Then he prayed for Peter once. Today he lives forever to make intercession for you and me. And when you have returned, to whom did Jesus give that assignment? And when you have returned, strengthen your brothers. Romans 14:9. Follow after things wherewith one may edify another. You may edify me and I may edify you. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. There are a lot of verses, I'm just quoting one another. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Wherefore comfort yourselves together and edify one another. Then the task was given only to Peter. When you have returned, strengthen your brethren. Today it's edify one another, strengthen one another, build one another up. When Jesus rose again, the women were there, Mary Magdalene, Mary and Salome. And Jesus said, tell the disciples, and he took a name specifically, Peter, that I'm going before them and I will see them. He called us by name too. Isaiah 43:1. I have called thee by your name. I'm saying there's no difference in what Peter has gone through and how the way Peter has failed and what we are going through and our occasional failures. Now, if Peter failed so badly and turned around and became a success, you better believe that the Lord will turn us and make us successful. Was Peter wrong in going fishing that night? Leaving his ministry. Everybody is just sitting around. Everybody was sitting around. He said, I'm going fishing. Nothing to do, I'm going fishing. Was Peter wrong in going fishing? The Old Testament speaks very highly of, there were 4 lepers once when the Syrian army had besieged Samaria. And the leper said, why sit we around here till we die? Let's go and ask mercy from the Syrian army. Whether we live, if we sit here, we are going to die. Whether we go there, either we may live or we may die. Either way, we are not worse off. Why sit here till we die? The Bible refers to that particular decision in a very positive way. Because when they go there, they find that the army has heard some rumor and they've just left everything and they've fled. And next morning, there's enough to feed the entire town of Samaria. When Saul and his army, entire army were, fighting scared of the enemy, Jonathan and his armor bearer went up saying, let's go up. The Lord can deliver by few or many. It's not hard. It doesn't matter to the Lord to save by 10,000 or to save by 1 or 2. So they went up and they win. They showed action. They showed boldness. Rather than sitting around, they said, let's go and do something. Peter did the same. He didn't do anything different, right? Why sit we around here till we die? Why sit we around here till, God knows when? Let's go and do something. The error that Peter made, and we all know this, I'm not telling you anything new, is that Jesus in Luke 5 had earlier told him, from now on, you will be fishers of men. His career had changed. His line of business had changed. And like the Israelites in the desert, somehow he may have remembered the meat and the leeks and the tomatoes and the fishes that they had before. And Peter decided to go fishing. We need to learn the Bible because, we end up repeating the same mistakes often. That call to be fishers of men is a universal call to each one of us. Some of us may say that, we have no experience fishing and we don't know fishing. We don't know what this, how to go and talk to another person. We don't know any of that thing. But Peter will tell you, he's a fisherman. He will tell you, being a fisher of man has got nothing to do with your experience or your knowing how. You do what he tells you. And you will catch. Peter didn't catch any fish that day, but that's not what made him a failure. I want us to understand this. If Peter had caught 10,000 fish, he would not have been a success.